Okay, good morning, everybody. I see Julie, Mayson here. So Mark is here and Kristl's here. Can't see Mark yet. I can see Kristl. You're looking very official. I should put my diplomas in the background of my Zoom meetings. That would be, the room rater is strong. There's Mark. I just want to just say thank you to Doctors Mayson and Tomlin. I was moved this week as I was asking around the church, and I saw a picture from 1918 at Trinity, New Orleans during the Spanish flu, and people were not, that people didn't understand what was happening, but the death was all around them. And what was really remarkable was that there were two doctors from the hospital in New Orleans who went to Trinity and spoke, and they spoke repeatedly week after week about sanitation and about things that would help mitigate the flu at that time. And the church became the hub of public health in that city. Later in the early 80s, St. George's and then St. Bart's in New York and a few other churches did the exact same thing during the AIDS epidemic, where it was very hard for public health officials to get accurate information out to people. There was so much misinformation that the churches took it upon themselves to invite members of their church who were doctors and nurses and healthcare officials to speak and to get good information out there. And so I feel like in some ways what we're doing today is fulfilling an age-old mission of the church, which is care for its members by getting proper information out to everyone. And so Mark and Kristl, thank you so much, because it really is a historic ministry that we're participating in. And so thank you. I see that the chat room is getting started. And so we'll get to those questions first. But let's start with Kristl, because you're on my left, and then we'll go to Mark on my right. Kristl, what's your background? Who are you? Tell us who you are.
Hi, thanks, Mitch, and thanks for organizing this, because I think this is great and it's nice to be a part of it. So my name, for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Kristl Tomlin. I am a pediatric and adolescent gynecologist. I also do adult OBGYN. I work at Prisma Health Richland. And I got my medical degree at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland in Dublin. If you haven't met my Irish husband, that explains that. One of the big reasons I was excited to participate in this today is because some of you may or may not know that because Prisma Health Richland is one of our tertiary centers here in the Midlands, and particularly for obstetrics, since the beginning of this pandemic, we've been getting all of the high-risk obstetric patients and gynecologic patients that have been coming from all across the Midlands and sometimes even beyond for higher levels of COVID care. So I have been in the trenches, so to speak, from the very, very beginning dealing with COVID patients. And so it was exciting to be able to talk a little bit about this today to you guys.
Thank you, Kristl. And Mark, who are you, Mark?
Hey, everybody. So Mark Mayson, I'm a pulmonologist with Prisma, and we're primarily out of Baptist. But, I haven't met Kristl, so it's very nice to meet you, colleague. But anyway, so I have been in the trenches as well, as you might imagine, COVID being mostly a respiratory virus, and certainly have seen a lot of this. This is part of my daily routine, unfortunately, at this point. And, I'm pretty passionate about what we can do individually and from a population management perspective to try to curtail this virus, because it's unfortunately, I've seen the worst of the worst. And, so I'm pretty passionate about what we need to do is not only a group, but again, individually what we can do. So if I can belay any type of myths about the vaccine, and then maybe give some advice if you do get sick.
Perfect, thank you. Well, one of the myths that I'm just going to get out of the way at the very beginning, because this is one that I've heard a couple of times from different people. Does taking the COVID vaccine mess with my DNA?
I'm happy to take that one. Because no, it doesn't. I mean, actually, this new technology is quite fascinating. So yes, the mRNA vaccine is different than what we're used to, but is not new. So this type of technology has been around for a bit. It's actually been tested in early phase studies with influenza, rabies, and Zika. So, but this is the first time that it's actually been on the market. So it's not new technology in the sense of, yes, we know that it's we've had it, it's been around, but we've never used it in mass scale like we're using it now. So messenger RNA is a type of, it's kind of, you could say, a translocator. It helps with the it helps with the building protein. So what this vaccine does is it builds up immunity to the mRNA, the messenger RNA, which helps the cell, once infected by the virus. The virus the virus alters the DNA in your cell, because what it does is it creates, it produces messenger RNA, which goes out into the cytoplasm, into the ribosomes, where, quote, spike proteins are formed. And these spike proteins are the viral capsid, and so the cell is actually fooled into making more viruses. And then when it reaches a kind of a bursting, or there's too much in there, the cell bursts and the viruses get sent out into the body, and there's more virus. So what this virus does, or what this vaccine does, is it creates immunity to this messenger RNA, so that the body can identify or can antagonize or fight off the RNA that's being produced by the virus, by the altered cell. So in essence, it does not get into your DNA, but it produces antibodies so that the virus can't produce more virus, can't replicate.
Thank you.
I think that's a great explanation. And one thing I would add is that I know that that's a worry. I've heard that from a lot of different people, and there have been a bunch of studies that have already looked at this. And so this was a subject of investigation early on, and multiple studies have shown that it doesn't get into your DNA. So it's not altering your DNA. It's just helping your body recognize the COVID virus, so that it can act more efficiently. So no, this has been studied and proven to be not true.
Thank you. And Kristl, I have a question that somebody texted me this week, and it fits into what you're doing. She's a healthcare worker, a physiotherapist, and she and her husband were recently married. She's wants to get pregnant, and is nervous about the vaccine as she's going through fertility and some other treatments that go with that.
Yeah, great question, and obviously one that I'm getting every day. So right now, the first thing I will say is I can recognize that this is a touchy subject, and I can appreciate that this is a challenging subject for people who may currently be pregnant or are planning on a pregnancy. My governing body is the American College of OBGYNs, and the American College of OBGYNs is recommending that all pregnant women strongly consider getting the vaccine. And actually, the recommendation is that if you're planning on getting pregnant, they would love you to get the vaccine before you become pregnant. And so for any of you who are out there who are planning a family or have someone in their family who are thinking about a pregnancy, actually, I recommend that you try and get vaccinated if you can before you become pregnant. But it is completely safe to get this vaccine in pregnancy. The one reason I can understand people's hesitation is because obviously there have not been randomized trials in pregnancy. The vaccine hasn't been around long enough. But kind of as Mark alluded to, we know this technology is not new. And based on how it works, we do not feel that this would affect a pregnancy, even if you were to get it. And so my pregnant patients are going to be getting it. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but it's a conversation that I am having. And the reason for that, just to say, is pregnant patients are at a higher risk of getting sick with COVID. So it's not that you're more likely to get it necessarily. It's just that if you were to get COVID while pregnant, you're a lot likely to get sicker. And I have seen this. I had a patient die on me last week. She was in her early 30s and she had just had her 8th baby. And she died from COVID last week on us. So when you are pregnant, you are a lot likely to get sicker from it. It's not that you're more likely to get it. So even for my patients who are pregnant, who choose not to get it, we're still recommending all the same things: social distancing, washing your hands, wearing a face mask, all that's really important. But back specifically to your question, Mitch, if you are planning on a family, we believe it is completely safe to get this vaccine.
Thank you. And both of you, and I'll switch over to Caitlin asking some questions after this one, but both of you alluded to that this is not new technology. And one of the things that I've heard from members of our church is something along the lines of, I think I'm going to get the vaccine, but it happened so fast. The vaccine was developed so fast, and I kind of want to see what's going to happen before I sign up. And there's a hesitancy there. So could you talk just briefly about the vaccine development and how it happened so fast? And maybe we can get some information to everyone about that.
So I'm happy to take that. And Mitch, when you reached out to me, I sent you that kind of a vaccine history, which I think is quite interesting. A lot of people don't are not aware of, all the trials and such, the safety that's been proven. So, right at a year ago, when the virus was first discovered in China, and we can go back to actually the fall of last year, 2019. So the virus was identified in China. It took the Chinese very little time to identify the DNA. And so on January 12th, the DNA was actually identified, the genomic sequencing was identified by the Chinese. And on January 14th, they released it to the world. And they said, this is the DNA sequence, and go for it. We need to approach this from just a population management from a world perspective. So they weren't holding back secrets. So from January 14th to April, 3 months, the vaccine was developed. First vaccines were administered in April. So that's about 9 months ago. So about 150,000 volunteers with 3-phase studies looking at safety and efficacy. And so we're looking at, a vaccine. Not only this type of technology had been years in development, but that's why they could roll it out so quickly, because they already had kind of the technology to insert or to determine the way to, over a 3-month time frame. They were able to, the big pharma companies were able to develop a vaccine that's effective. And it's only because they'd done years and years of research prior to this.
Yeah, and I'd add to that, we don't talk about the silver lining of this vaccine of this pandemic very often, but part of the development, kind of as Mark alluded to, is there's been a lot of global collaboration, which is unheard of. Governments were working together, big pharma was working together. This really pulled people together in record speed, and people were sharing information in a way that they have never shared information before for the greater good. And so a process that normally would take years because everyone was working in a silo was able to be expedited because people were working together. And I think that's a really remarkable story that we haven't really focused on. And that the other thing to remember is that governments from around the world invested a whole lot of money, ours included, in developing this vaccine. So that allowed it to get expedited faster. There was more money, it was prioritized, there was sharing. So that's one of the big reasons that it was able to be developed so quickly. And so it's not that corners were cut, which is something that I hear a lot about. And it's not that we're all just guinea pigs on this. They were planning on using mRNA vaccines prior to this pandemic. Because we were able to work together globally, we were able to pull that together. And that's one of the reasons. And just remember, all of the rigorous safety processes and the clinical trials, they all still happen. So first tested in animals, on small group volunteers, tested on large. Vaccine has to go to an independent review board. So it's not like Pfizer developed this and it just goes to a Pfizer board. The FDA is independent, and each government around the world is independently looking at that data that Pfizer submits to them to approve it. So there are a lot of layers of security in approving these vaccines that are independent of the big pharma. So it's not like it's some insulated thing.
That's super helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Caitlin, you're up.
So I saw on my Facebook feed, somebody shared an article that said, buried in page 137 of the report, it says that the vaccine is made out of dead babies. Is that true?
Mark?
Brian, Kristl, do you want to take that one?
I saw it on Facebook.
Well,
Is
I'm
the
sure
short.
you believe everything on Facebook, don't you?
And I'm sorry to laugh because I do apologize for laughing, because I recognize there's so much misinformation out there. It can be really hard to sift through what's real and what's not. And it can be very hard. And I've gotten lots of questions of I saw on Facebook, and I've gotten lots of questions of what my neighbor said. No, this is not made out of DNA of dead babies. This is not made out of cadaveric or pork or anything else. I've heard a lot about egg allergies. No, this is an mRNA based technology. So this was very controlled in a lab.
We're going to keep coming with obscure questions, because those are the ones, I don't know, maybe people are too embarrassed to ask their doctors. And
Please
so they
don't
somehow
be.
think that the clergy will answer the question better. And
Yeah.
I can't.
Mitch, let me just say, first of all, there's no stupid question, okay? Because
I agree.
this is brand new, and we want to assure that everyone feels comfortable. If you're going to roll up your sleeve, and I'm a big proponent of everyone getting vaccinated, but I want everyone to be completely comfortable.
So
I agree. And to that end, actually, I will say, before anyone asks it, yes, I have been vaccinated. I actually got my second dose on Friday. And I'm delighted that I have. But let me tell you, as soon as that vaccine is available for my husband and for my two little girls, I'm going to get them vaccinated too. And I know that will probably come up. Would you vaccinate your children? Would you vaccinate your family? Absolutely. And I have already been vaccinated. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
Likewise, I've been vaccinated, so I've received my two vaccines, and I didn't grow another arm or anything like that.
I'm starting to go into the comment section,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a question here. Let's see. Well, Patsy asked, what happens if you went if you can't get your second shot on time? And some of the questions about sort of the shortages right now.
Yeah, so with the first dose, the efficacy is about 40 to 50%, and that's why you need to get the second dose. Now, they say 3 weeks because you need to build up some immunity and then get that redose to assure that you have the immunity to those spike proteins in the mRNA. So if it is delayed a few days, no big deal. If it's delayed a few weeks, you may have to I guess your memory cells, the lymphocytes that make these antibodies, will have to be re-stimulated, and you'd probably have to go back through the entire 2 dosage vaccination process.
Though I will say, also remember, guys, right now, mostly we're working on Pfizer and Moderna, but there are lots of other vaccines coming out in the pipeline, including AstraZeneca is developing a single dose vaccine. And so that may change. This is a work in progress.
Right.
That may, and actually Moderna, I know, collected some of their data on response and immune response after the first dose, and it suggests that it may be a little bit higher even, which I know a lot of people are asking, well, how can they do this in the UK? How come they're delaying that second dose in the UK? They're working on that data. That's some of it, that you may have a little bit more than we think, possibly. But just remember, that's a work in progress. So if you hear something later, it's not that Mark was wrong. It's just that things are changing really fast.
There's another question in the chat. If you've had COVID, should you still get the vaccine? And how long do you need to wait after an active infection to get it?
Okay, so it's generally yes. So the short answer is yes. You should get vaccinated after you've had if you've suffered and recovered from the virus. Usually, the thing is, we don't know how long the immunity will last. It's estimated 3 months, but plus minus, we really don't know that. So we're recommending that yes, you get vaccinated again, but wait 3 months till afterwards, because there are other people that potentially need the vaccine that have not been exposed.
And then a clarification with somebody with allergies, to be clear, there's no eggs in the vaccine?
No eggs. It's a completely different type of technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's some questions about, I'm just going to read this one. A friend is 78 and on many medications for some anxiety and depression and others neurology related. Is it safe for him to take the COVID shot he's scheduled for February 11th?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, the side effects, and I think most people, hopefully people know most of the side effects are going to be a local reaction. So you get, and indeed, I had it's like I had a little frog on my, I had a soreness at the injection site. My first vaccine, because I've had the virus back in the summer, my first vaccine, I had some fatigue and aches. I didn't have fever, but some people can get a low-grade fever or headache. So you can have some flu-type symptoms for a day. My second vaccine, I pretty much had no side effects. But what I am hearing is mostly, and if you've not had the virus, it's sometimes the second vaccine, because you're really building up that immune response. But it's usually just limited to a day or so, kind of flu-type symptoms. But as far as the serious side effects, with the Pfizer, 11 people out of 1 million had anaphylaxis. There are some other, allergic type symptoms that can happen. And I have had that question not uncommonly. I have, bad allergies. Should I get the test, or should I get the vaccine? And the answer is yes, I think you should, but also discuss it with your healthcare provider, because again, there is a possibility. I have actually told people because I do see a lot of asthmatics, take some prednisone beforehand, the day before, to prevent any type of reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll second that. I've seen reactions, and for those of you who may or may not know, typically there's right now, like I said, most of us are getting Pfizer or Moderna. It's 2 shots administered about 3 weeks apart. When you go to get your vaccine, what will happen is you get enrolled into the CDC database, and they're going to ask you a lot of different questions. They're going to ask you about a history of anaphylaxis. They're going to ask you about a history. So there is that layer of safety. Even when you're sitting there with the vaccine on a table waiting to get in your arm, they will ask you that. And so I agree. I was completely fine on both of mine. Literally, I had nothing on both. But on my second one, because I saw a couple of my physician friends laid low with their flu-like symptoms, I definitely was alternating Tylenol and Motrin for 24 hours just in case. And I was actually grand. But the other thing to say is that when you get your injection, and I loved this, they will give you a QR code that you can use to sign up for the CDC's. It's called VCare. And so you will get a text message if you opt in from the CDC every day asking about whether or not you have symptoms, whether or not you have side effects, how serious those are. And if they feel that something's serious, you'll actually get a call from the CDC. So, people are checking in on you. And then, the most common tend to be fatigue, muscle aches, sometimes a low-grade fever. A couple of people I know have experienced nausea and vomiting. And again, if you haven't had if you haven't had COVID, the majority of people tend to get that on their second injection.
So I get my first dose of the vaccine. I'm really excited. I'm vaccinated, right? Like I can go to the bar after I leave the doctor's office and go get a drink. Am I good now?
Oh,
Definitely. And you should see, I'm sure Mark and I probably both look similar. You should see us in the rooms of COVID patients. I mean, sometimes I'm delivering babies with COVID patients. I look like I'm about to take off into outer space with all the gear that we have to have on. And that's even with vaccination. So just because you've been vaccinated, it doesn't mean that life goes back to normal. We don't know about whether or not if you've been vaccinated, you can be an asymptomatic carrier and potentially infect people that are around you. So even if you've been infected, we're still recommending social distancing, hand washing, and mask wearing.
Absolutely.
I have kind of a follow-up question to the, mask wearing and hand washing and whatnot. Like information has come at us really fast. Information has come at us from a lot of sources, including, what my neighbor shares on Facebook. And I've heard some people say like, oh, my face shield is totally fine and the only thing I need to wear. I've heard other people say, if I'm 6 feet apart, I don't need to do anything else. Like, what do we need to be doing right now to stay safe? Because I don't know, what's real, what's not. Like, it's all very conflicting. Can I have people over to my house? Like, what do I need to be doing?
Well, I mean, I think we all know what's going on around the state and around the country. I mean, the numbers are staggering now. I think, I just looked on the website, and 6,400 new cases yesterday in South Carolina. If you go back a couple of months in November, we were about 1,500. And I think we remember when we thought 1,000 was a lot. So the hospitals are full. We're trying to make room for patients because we don't have the room. We actually have rooms, but we don't have the staff to take care of them. The short of it is we have to do everything we can to prevent the spread. So a face shield is not enough. You have to wear a mask. The mask, and it's not only for your own safety, but it's to help prevent, because guess what? I mean, we're the only vectors. Humans are the only vectors for this. So we spread it. And even if I get it, I'm probably going to spread it to how many people until I even know I have it. So the only way that we get a handle on this is we take care of ourselves, but take care of others. And a face shield will prevent you from getting it. It will also prevent you from spreading it. A face shield will add to that. Did I say a mask? So you need to wear a mask. The face shield, it will help. Again, sometimes there has been some eye transmission. So we do wear all this when we go into a COVID room in the hospital, but the mask is essential, as well as the distancing.
Yeah, and to add to that, right? I get it. I miss my friends, and I'm having dinner. This was my year. I would fly to Dublin to be with my family for Christmas. I only get to see them every couple years. I didn't get to go. I get it. And I get that mask fatigue is real. I understand the masks are uncomfortable and you want to wear them down here underneath your nose and only covering your mouth. I get it. But what we do know is the best way to lower spread is not only for you to wear a mask, but for the people you're around to be wearing a mask. Do I see people going out for walks, staying outside 6 feet apart, wearing masks? That's safer, right, than having someone over in your living room for coffee. But really we know that the best thing to do is to try and maintain your distance, minimize the amount that you have to go out. The numbers are insane. The numbers are insane right now. Minimize how much you have to go out. My parents are guilty of this. They'll go, oh, I just wanted to go run to the shop and go grab this thing. Do you need that thing? Will you survive without that thing? Then how about you don't run to the shop to get that thing, and you can combine it next time you run to the shop, just to try and minimize your risk every time that you go out. I will say that one of the things that I heard, which I think is really true, is this is a very deceptive vaccine. It tugs, or virus, it tugs at your heartstrings, right? You think that the people close to you, you think your best friend, you think your granddaughter, you think your, son's best friend, they've always been there, and they're not going to have it. And they can. And I've seen a lot of people get sick. And Mark's point is true. If not for yourself, for others. I told you I had this woman in her 30s last week who died. She was transferred to us from another hospital, and she was 34 weeks pregnant. We had to do an emergency delivery to deliver this baby early, who's still in the NICU, to try and save her life. And there was no room for her in the ICU. Y'all, there was no room for her in the ICU because the ICU was full. And she died. I mean, we got her in the ICU eventually, but that's scary stuff. So I'm trying to figure out how to take care of this patient, this new mom who cannot breathe, on my labor and delivery floor. And I didn't have access to the ICU because it was full. So if not for yourself, then for others, please, please, please continue to do all of these things, even if you are vaccinated.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very scary.
One more anecdote. And this is actually when I had the virus. So this goes back to end of June, 1st of July. So before I knew I had the virus, i.e. before I knew something was strange, I was fatigued, I had the aches and all that. The day before, I'd seen a full office of patients the day before. So I'm reflecting on this, knowing at that time I was probably infective. And again, I deal with high-risk patients. I mean, COPD, elderly. So I saw a whole cadre of patients that day. And the first thing I did when I found that I was positive is we called every one of those patients. I was masked the whole time. I used hand hygiene, and not one of those patients developed COVID. So I feel good about that. But it does show you the power of wearing a mask and using good hand hygiene.
Thank you. That is very helpful. I have a question. One is, are the two shots the same chemically?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second question is, I'm going through it. Can you explain the dangers to anyone with an autoimmune disease such as MS with the vaccine?
Okay. I'm happy to, so
Yeah,
autoimmune disease actually puts you at higher risk of getting the virus. So there's no worsening risks in someone that has an autoimmune process with getting the vaccine.
I'm wondering about the impetus for writing that question. And I know sometimes people are concerned about things like Guillain-Barré from getting vaccines. Some of you may have heard of that, and we have not been hearing about Guillain-Barré, which is a reaction that sometimes people can get after a vaccine. We haven't been hearing about Guillain-Barré. So if that was the reason, whoever asked that question, if that's why, that's not what we're hearing about.
Okay,
Is the COVID? Sorry, Mitch, go ahead.
well, mine was about ice cream in China. I think it's been.
Oh, I want to ask that one next too. That one's good. We'll do that one first. So somebody asked, COVID was found in ice cream in China. And I've heard that, some of our food processing plants here in the States, particularly who deal with like vegetables or lettuces or whatever else, have had big outbreaks. What is the risk of COVID being in our food?
No. So I don't know if there's been any evidence of spread through food. At least, and I have not seen that article from China about ice cream, so I can't comment on that. But we know that the virus does not, it does not live on hard surfaces for very long. And I'm not sure, even though theoretically it can be transmissible on hard surfaces. Again, it's more theoretical than evidence-based.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any great number on that. That being said, if someone is preparing your sandwich, I would want them to be wearing a mask while they do so. Right? Because that is someone who's preparing your food, breathing on it, and then it's going straight into your body. So I don't know that there's hard numbers. I can't quote you a percentage on that.
Is the COVID vaccine something that we'll have to get every year, like the flu shot?
Good question.
Good question.
So again, I'm going to get on my soapbox because I am such a big proponent. I mean, and you know, I'm going to start with my little soliloquy so to reach herd immunity, you need 70%. About 70% of the population needs to be immunized. Right now in South Carolina, we're probably about 7 or 8% that have had the virus that we know about. If you look at the numbers, we got a long way to go. The longer the virus is out there and the more prevalent it is, the more chance it's going to mutate. So if we want to get a handle on this and not have to do an annual vaccine, because it will mutate, it's like any other virus, it's natural selection, then the sooner we can get immunized, the less chance that it's going to mutate. So I guess that's in a nutshell. We don't know yet. It all depends.
When I have Denise and I were involved in a podcast with the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they were talking about their athletes. And somebody asked a question along those lines, and the doctor for the U.S. Olympic Committee looked at them and said, all of my athletes get the flu shot every year. If you have to take it every year, so what? It's better to not have the damage to your lungs and your heart by taking this vaccine than potentially getting it. And that was to America's elite athletes.
Good point. And I will say that as well. You know, I know we were talking a little earlier about some of the local side effects from getting the vaccine. And I know that can be daunting. I mean, I went in, I preloaded with my ibuprofen before I went in for my injection. You know, I was a little nervous about it, and I can completely understand that. But listen, my mantra that day was, it's better than getting COVID. Even if I have a little localized reaction, it is better than getting COVID.
I have a silly question. You know, I've heard that like the Pfizer vaccine has to be super cold, and that even Moderna needs to be freezing. Is it cold when you get it?
No.
Like, does it feel cold in your arm?
No.
Why? Why?
That's a good question.
It's not, you know, they don't inject it when it's negative 70 degrees or negative 70 degrees. So
yeah, no, they take it out. They take it out and they warm it so it's room temperature when you get it. That's a good question, though. What else?
I have a question from our comments. It seems scarier now than at the beginning with the numbers. Is there a point in the next few months where you see it getting better?
So it depends on us,
right?
Depends on what we do. So I mean, that's a really good comment, because things are not going to get better in the near future. And I'm talking about the near future, meaning the next month to couple of months. I mean, things as we see the numbers go up, I am very concerned that it's going to overwhelm our medical system. So again, we have to reach herd immunity to get a handle on this thing. And right now, as you see the numbers, there are so many people there you could call a fair game to get this virus, and the virus will find you. I mean, it is a highly, highly infectious virus. And, you know, unfortunately, with the way that we live, we're social animals. And as Kristl's pointed out, I mean, we see people that are kind of getting back into a normal routine. As you commented about the holidays, we've seen the holiday spike, but unfortunately, I don't see people that are quarantining the way they need to. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing, you know, if you go out in the public, not everyone is wearing masks the way they need to. So unfortunately, I think it is kind of scary right now. More reason for us to really, really push getting vaccinated. And you know, again, that's the only way we're gonna get a handle on this thing.
I agree.
With this, and I want to say to some folks that we've had actually Julie and Hayden, Mark and Kristl's spouses respectively, have been our first volunteers, but we have several volunteers at the church who are willing to walk people through getting registered for the vaccine, whether they're using the web page or a calling hospital, but they're willing to walk people through it. And so if you're having a hard time navigating the computers, the parish hall has been set up with help desks in case anybody needs to come in, and we can help you that way. Or if we can help you on the phone, we have volunteers. All you have to do is send an email to Caitlin or myself, and we'll get you to one of our volunteers to help you get registered for the vaccine. It is
Absolutely.
So.
And y'all, it's all going to be moving pretty quickly. I suspect that now that we're starting to work out some of the kinks, I'm hoping that in the next few weeks to a month, we're going to start to see a faster, more efficient rollout is what I'm hoping is going to happen. And so right now we're on, I think, phase 1B, if I'm right, Mark. So we're on phase 1B, but remember that to pay attention to local media, news outlets preferably. I know both Mark and I work for Prisma Health, and Prisma Health has an entire COVID vaccine website set up. So you can continue to check back at that so you can see where you fall in terms of your eligibility for the vaccine. I know that Prisma last week just set up a very large vaccination site. It's down by the fairgrounds, down by William Bryce. And so we're really trying to make sure that we are getting vaccine out to as many people as quickly as we can. So it is moving quickly, hopefully, now that we're working out the kinks.
I have two questions from the same person. One is a follow-up on the food transmission questions. What is the best protocol for following or for protocol to follow in regards to receipt of mail, packages delivered, food delivered? And then will Prisma begin to give the Moderna vaccine? Same question, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as far as receipt of packages, so at least the initial study showed that viral particles can live on hard surfaces for up to 3 days, okay? Whether those are transmissible, infectious type particles, we don't know, okay? Generally speaking, when you receive mail or food from the outside, if it's delivered, it's probably best to go ahead and try to sterilize that with a handy wipe or something, because you don't know the person that has delivered it to you could have virus and could have shed it on those packages. So probably best to go ahead and wipe it down.
And for those of you who are doing curbside, I know I'm trying very hard to support my local businesses and support my local restaurants and get curbside. What I'm doing is I'm taking those packages of food, I'm transferring the food onto my plates. So I'm not eating out of styrofoam containers or whatever. And then I'm throwing all that stuff away and then washing my hands with soap and water before I eat. So that way you're making sure that you're covering your bases. To answer that second question about Moderna, I don't know. Unfortunately, I am not at the salary level to be in the upper echelons of Prisma leadership. But I do know that one of the reasons that we've been getting the Pfizer vaccine is because we're one of the only infrastructures currently in the Midlands that's large enough to sustain the deep freeze. Obviously, because the Pfizer vaccine has to be at a lower temperature than Moderna. And so larger organizations typically have that infrastructure to hold that vaccine. So I don't know. Like I said, more and more vaccines are coming out on the market. So that's pretty dynamic.
Yeah, I think as far as, and again, I don't think even Prisma knows which vaccine they're getting. This is more of a governmental level. So the thing is, both of the vaccines are effective. The Moderna does not have to be stored as cold as the Pfizer, but both are effective. So if one or the other is offered, just get it.
Get it. Y'all, it is unheard of for vaccines to be this effective. The lower number is 94% effective. That's amazing. We would have been happy with 70%. So 94% effective is really fantastic. And I can tell you, yes, obviously Mark and I are frontline and we're seeing people every day and we're at a high risk, but everyone who walks out of their home is at a risk of seeing someone because our numbers are so high. And it was a huge relief for my family and those people who loved me to know that I had this extra, what my mother-in-law called it, a security blanket, right? It doesn't mean I get to stop wearing my mask, doesn't mean I get to stop washing my hands, but I have this little security blanket so they're not saying prayers about me every night, worrying. Like my two little girls, every night, please protect mommy so she doesn't get the coronavirus. And I think it's really helped them, so they know that I'm a little bit more protected.
So I've seen several questions in the comments about the amount of supply of vaccine we have. I know there's been some reporting from national and local news stations that we might be seeing a shortage, that there's not enough to go around. I wonder if you guys can shed any insight on that, and maybe like what happens if we do have a shortage.
Okay, so right now, at least what I've seen on the news, and again, I'm commenting from the news because I don't know what the supplies are, but it seems like at least nationally there has been, we've exhausted the supplies for the short term. But these vaccines are being produced all the time, so we'll get more.
Right. And I wouldn't use that as a reason to not get it, right? You know, we were talking earlier about the efficacy of just one dose. So, and many of you may know that, for instance, in the UK, in an effort to get more shots into arms, they're delaying that second dose, and they're working on that about 50% efficacy. 50% efficacy is better than 0% efficacy without having been vaccinated. So even if, you know, right now it's on offer, get it. And if there's a shortage, we'll deal with it. But one shot is still better than no shots.
Absolutely.
I have sort of a follow-up question, and I feel like, you know, I know how you guys are going to answer, and I'm going to ask it anyway. I was having a conversation with some friends the other night. One of them is a school teacher, and the other is a professor at a university. And in their states, they came up for, you know, being able to schedule their vaccination appointments. And they were really concerned that they, like, as healthy individuals who have the luxury to be able to, you know, stay at home and socially distance, they're not coming in contact with students, that they were taking somebody's spot in line, and that they should not take their vaccination appointment so that somebody else can move up in line. Is that a good call? Should they go ahead and get the vaccination? What would you recommend to somebody having that kind of ethical dilemma?
So what I would, you know, again, if one's at high risk and you qualify for the vaccine, I'd go ahead and get it. And right now, I mean, 70 plus, phase 1B will be 65 and above with other comorbid conditions. Or I mean, 65 and above, and then less than 65 with comorbid conditions. So the thing is, this is a very unpredictable virus. So unfortunately, it may, you know, one can be young and healthy and still have a bad outcome. But we do know that age itself is a particular risk factor. And there's a JAMA article that I love. I actually have it on my phone because I show it to a lot of my patients who ask this. And per decade, the chance of one dying triples. Okay, so by the time, this is an article going back to, I think, back in the spring, by the time that one reaches 85, there's a 30% chance of dying if you contract COVID. That's scary.
Yeah, and I have to say I agree. You know, I know that this tiered system is a little imperfect, and people are always going to have their quabbles with the way this is being run, and I think everyone who's working on it is doing the best they can under circumstances that no one could have ever seen. But I think that the point of the tier system is that some people are just at higher risk than others, and if you are in that, even if you're doing a great job, even if you're at home, the fact is you're still at a higher risk than a lot of others. I would recommend that you go ahead and get it.
Thank you both. And I just scrolled through the who was participating. It's an interesting thing from a clergy standpoint, and I want everybody to know that this year, in terms of funerals at St. Martin's, has been really insane. And so, for every number, there's a family in mourning, and I think that that's really important for us to, as we consider moving forward and towards Easter and everything else, and worship services. Every number for the death list is a family in mourning, and we don't want to participate in that. We don't want to add to those numbers, I should say. Also, with what Mark just said about each decade adding a chance for this to affect you adversely, I'm going to go home today and have a conversation with Noah. One of his teammates' fathers has started into the process of having heart failure, and so it's something that affects all ages. And so parents who are on this call, I think it's really important that you talk to your children about COVID, about the dangers of COVID, and encourage their safety, because unfortunately, when we are hitting 400,000 dead across the country, the ripple effects hit all ages. And so have the conversations now, have the conversations with children and grandchildren as appropriate, because they are going to feel the effects of this, and in more ways than they already are in terms of physical distancing and everything else. They are going to feel the emotional effects. And so I think it's important to have these conversations. The questions are starting to get a little bit repetitive, but I want to thank you all for participating in this and for helping with this. I'm starting to see in the comments that it's been, oh, there's a new one, Margaret Sprott. Well, someone with severe respiratory allergies, somebody with severe, somebody else commented now. Will someone with severe respiratory allergies and moderate asthma qualify for level 1B?
Yes, that should be.
Yeah, I have the list actually, if you'd like me to just read it out. I happen to have it here in front of me. So 1A was healthcare workers, long-term care facilities. 1B, persons aged greater than 75 and frontline essential workers. 1C, persons aged 65 to 75 and persons aged 16 to 64. That 16 is, the only reason that 16 is there is because the trials only went up to that age. Okay, so it's not that we don't care about youth, it's that we aren't vaccinating under 16. And the high risk medical conditions include, outlined by the CDC, include pregnancy, active cancer diagnosis, chronic kidney disease, COPD, heart conditions such as heart failure, coronary artery disease, or cardiomyopathy, an immunocompromised state from solid organ transplant, obesity of a BMI of 30 or higher, but less than 40, severe obesity, so why they're not combined, I don't know, sickle cell disease, a history of smoking or a current smoker, and type 2 diabetes is the current list. But again, that's subject to change. So like I said, if any of those things that I just said apply to you, please be on the lookout for, because that next phase I think is going to come a lot quicker.
Last words from our two doctors, and we'll close in prayer.
So yeah, I mean, well, Mitch, thanks for organizing this, because as we know, there are a lot of myths about the virus and actually the vaccine. So hopefully this has helped alleviate some of the concerns. But again, I think that the main thing that we need to take home is that we need to stay diligent, and we need to, everyone's getting tired of of distancing and not congregating. Everyone's getting tired of wearing masks, but the only way to mitigate this is to hold fast. And the vaccine is coming, but it's going to be months before we have enough people vaccinated to actually curtail the spread. So again, until we can get mass vaccination, which may be 6 months or so, we just got to hold tight with what we're doing to try to prevent spread.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. And like I said, I get it. I'm tired. I wish I could see my friends. I wish I could have a dinner party. I wish I could go to a restaurant. I get it. But as Mark said earlier, we are the only ones who spread this virus. So this is us. We have to wake up every morning and make a decision about how we're going to keep us, those people around us who we love, safe, and those people in our community safe. And so this is a decision that we have to make every day. And when we look back in history, I hope that we can say that we made choices that helped the greater good. And I understand that the vaccine is scary, and I understand that information is coming fast. And so I'm available for questions at any time. I will do my best to answer them for you. You can speak to your physician. Any of us are happy to help allay your fears so that you can walk forward in confidence, knowing that you're doing something for the greater good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, please, if you're having a hard time registering for the vaccine, email the church. We'll connect you with somebody who can help you. And if you are a person who considers yourself very computer literate and are willing to work a phone and are willing to volunteer to help connect people with vaccine appointments, also email the office and let me know. And we will we'll try our best to get everybody connected with a caregiver and a way to get the vaccine. And with that, Caitlin, will you close us in prayer?
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. O God of heavenly powers, by the might of your command, drive away from our bodies and from our community all sickness and all infirmity. Be present in your goodness with those who are ill right now, that their weakness may be banished and their strength restored. Sanctify those whom you have called to study and practice the art of healing and the prevention of disease and pain. Strengthen those who care for the ill by your life-giving spirit, that by their ministries the health of our community and our world may be promoted and restored. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Kristl and Mark, thank you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Pleasure.
This is really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you all.